Thank you for joining us today for the Documentum D2 4.5 webinar, What's New and See the Latest Features in Action. I'm Larissa Primavera. I'm the Director of Sales for FME, the U.S. group located here in Danbury, Connecticut. And with me I have Christian Mayer. He's our Senior Consultant from FME AG out in Braunschweig, Germany. And he is also, most importantly, our Competency Center Lead for Documentum, or the ECD product line. So Christian is responsible for keeping the FME team up to date on anything new with EMC ECD products, including, of course, D2. So just some housekeeping. Today you're actually in listen-only mode and muted, but at the end of the session you can direct your questions to the organizer through the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them accordingly. The session will also be recorded, and we will share this with you after the webinar, and you can feel free and share it with your colleagues as well. Okay, so the details for the webinar, we're just going to talk a little bit about FME, just who we are, what's new in D2 4.5. So it's not a real big list of slides today, because again, the session is really about showing you the demonstration of D2 4.5. And then we'll leave time for our Q&A session. We'll try to keep it up to the hour. Sometimes we do end up staying a little bit after, and that's fine too if there's questions that we need to answer. So FME, who we are, we're actually headquartered in Braunschweig, Germany. We have offices throughout Germany in Munich, Frankfurt, and Cologne, and subsidiaries in the United States and Romania. I'd mentioned I'm from our U.S. team here in Danbury, Connecticut. Our Romanian team is our product development and product support, as well as our near and offshore services team. So we work with enterprise content management systems. A lot of our focus, as I'm sure you've learned over the years, is on EMC, Documentum, and the ECD suite of products, so including D2, the D2 Life Sciences solutions as well, Records Manager, Captiva, all of their solutions in that stack. We also focus a little bit on SharePoint, Alfresco, and SAP within our organization. Business intelligence is another area of focus for us, and we partner with a company called Click for their technologies, ClickView and ClickSense. The main part of our business is in services and in consulting, but we also do product development, and we have our own product line. One of the most popular ones is Migration Center, and that is heavily used in the market today for migrating ECM systems, not only Documentum, but it supports other systems as well. We were founded in 1995, and we have 175 plus employees worldwide. So I'm going to turn it over to Christian now to talk to you a little bit about D2 4.5 new features, and then he will get into the demonstration.
Yeah, thank you very much, Larissa, for the introduction. So let's start with the main part of this webinar, what's new in D2 4.5. So this webinar will cover only the new features in this version 4.5. I will not present any common D2 things like typical use cases or features common features of D2. So let's first start with strategic themes of this release. The D2 4.5 release was released in April this year, mid of April, and EMC focus on these strategic themes, so productivity, information integrity, and agility. So for productivity, EMC introduced a lot of features which increases the productivity of the user. For information integrity, EMC introduced further capabilities to integrate D2 into the current environment and in companies. For example, they introduced new capabilities for single sign-on and things like that. And of course, agility. So EMC improved the installation and deployment of D2 in this version. So let's look at the features in detail a little more. So here you see features for the three themes. So we have a lot of features for productivity, for example, the modern look and feel, so the refreshed UI, the new search capabilities with facets, and also improvements for the query form searches, the delegations feature, and all this. In the middle, we see information integrity with additional SSO providers, with support for the simplicity connector for Documentum 1.1, for example, and also with enhanced D2 intelligent URL capabilities. And last but not least, agility. I already mentioned it. Easier deployment and installation of D2. On the next slide, I will present you some new features in this version, which are a little bit difficult to present in a demo. This is the reason why I have also some slides with features which are not covered in the demo at the end of this webinar. So let's start with the first improvement for the theme productivity. So the latest version of D2 4.5 has increased performance for the use of Box. So Box is a product of EMC, which stands for Branch Office Caching Services. So this is a product which can be used in remote offices, and you can sync and share content from the content server to this Box server. And the advantage is that a remote user who uses the Box server has better access to the content. So the retrieval and the import of content is much faster than when you directly communicate with the content server. And in the version 4.5, EMC improved the performance for this Box product dramatically for D2, especially for the use for O2 and C2 plugins. Another feature is the support of the simplicity connector for Documentum in version 1.1. So this simplicity connector has additional features. For example, the user can not only share folders to simplicity, the user can also select profiles for published content and publish and revise content, and all these things, and additional configuration possibilities to configure the link and share, for example, for specific formats or object types, or based on attributes. SSO, this stands for single sign-on, an important topic in many companies. In the previous versions, only Kerberos and NTLM were supported for SSO, and in 4.5 they introduced support for ASR Clear Trust, CI SiteMinder, and IBM Tableau Access Manager WebSteel. In addition, D2 supports Kerberos for multi-domains, which is also a new feature in the version 4.5. So the support of multi-repositories. This is a very powerful feature. So with version 4.5, it's possible to access multiple repositories through the D2 client, and it's also possible to copy content from one repository to another repository, and it's also possible to link content from one repository to another. That means when you copy content, then D2 checks if the object type is present in the target repository, and if it's present, then all the attributes are copied. If the object type is not in the target repository, then the import wizard will be displayed, and the user can select the attribute values for the target object type. So this is technically the easiest use case. The more complicated use case for multiple repositories is, of course, the linking of content between multiple repositories. And For this, D2 creates an object in the target repository which points to the source repository, and all the attributes are stored in this link object, and the content is only located in the source repository. The advantage of this feature is, of course, that you do not deduplicate content, and it's of course possible to execute actions also on the linked object. So, for example, if you want to use the linked objects in a workflow or in a life cycle, then this is possible with this feature. So, if you're more interested in this, the user guide of D2 4.5 has a chapter which explains all the features which are possible with the linked object in detail, and this is a lot. So this chapter describes these features very good. Logbox. So for those of you who are familiar with the previous version 4.2 of D2, knows that EMC introduced the logbox feature in this version, and in the previous version 4.2 it was not always easy to configure logbox, and in 4.5 they introduced a configuration tool. With this configuration tool you are able to configure all necessary logbox settings. So, for example, the tool copies the logbox file to the right location, creates logbox file, and stores the password also in the logbox file. So this is a very good improvement for the administrators when they want to install D2. Another feature which was introduced with D2 4.5 is the enhancement of the specification plugin. So in the previous versions of D2, the specification plugin was able to create a summary about the configuration of a D2 application, and now it's also possible to compare different configurations with this plugin. So if you want to compare two very complex configurations, then it's not possible, and the result is displayed in a table where you see the differences between two configurations. So you can select configurations which are either in the repository or also offline when you have exported it. Okay, that's on the theoretical part. So now I want to switch to my D2 application, which I've prepared for this webinar, and I want to show you some nice features of D2 4.5 in my application. So therefore I switch to my browser and log in to my application. Okay, and here we are. So this is my application which I've prepared for this webinar. And for those of you who know D2 in version 4.2 or 4.1, notice that the UI of 4.5 looks a little bit different. It looks nicer. EMC redesigned the UI a little bit. So, for example, the tabs now have rounded corners. In the previous version, these were square tabs, or for example, the display of a workspace looks a bit nicer with an icon which can be configured. In addition to that, EMC displays now the login user and the repository. Also new features of the part, refreshed UI, of course other new icons which are different than in previous versions, and also the home cabinet. So in previous versions of D2 the home cabinet was not displayed. For those of you who are familiar with WebTop know that there's a home cabinet in WebTop, and now you are able to configure also the home cabinet in D2. Yeah. Let's come to the second part, or another new feature. This is the folder import. So D2 now supports the import of folder structures. Therefore, you have to configure the folder structure import on the configuration side of D2. And now I want to display you how this works. So first of all, I want to show you the structure which I've prepared. So here you see that I have a cabinet product docs and for Documentum D2, and then two subfolders for version 4.1 and 4.2. And now I want to import manuals for the version 4.2. Therefore, I start the folder structure import. The virt is opened, and now I have to select my folder. So I've prepared the folder 4.5, which includes subfolders, and in the subfolders there are guides. So this folder user guide contains the D2 user guide, and so on. So I select this and go to the next page, and here I can select, of course, the attributes. So in our case it's Documentum and D2 and version 4.5. The name is empty because the name is the name attribute is the file name, the name of the content file itself. Okay, now I start the import by clicking check in all content and finish. I'll need some seconds. Here in the right bottom corner we see that the folder structure import is in progress, currently with 60%, and now it's successful, and I can go to this folder. So here we see that my folder structure import this folder with the subfolders, and when I click on release notes I see the document. So with this feature it's possible to import folder structures to D2. Okay, so the next feature I want to present you is the search and the new capabilities of the search. So the search is always an important feature in an enterprise content management system, and EMC introduced new features which improve the search experience for the user. So therefore I switch to the search view of my workspace. Here you see the search view with my configured widgets. So I have a facet widget on the left side, preview widget on the right side, and here we see some document list widget. So what's new? First of all, I want to execute a query, and then I will explain you the details. So for example, I want to execute a full text search for Documentum. And now you see the result and also my facets. So what's new in version 4.5? Different things. First of all, now it's possible to execute a full text query, or also displays the advanced query directly in the documents list or thumbnail widget. So you can configure if this search bar will be displayed or not. In our case, I have configured the search bar for this application, and I've even executed this search directly in this widget. So in previous versions, a separate widget was necessary to execute a search. So another thing which is new is the facets widget. So when I execute a full text search and I have configured facets, then it's possible to display the facets in the new facet widget. In previous versions, the facets were displayed in the search widgets, and now they have their own widget. And in my point of view, facets are a very powerful feature for the user to find the content the user is looking for. Why? Because you can decrease the result list dramatically by selecting facets. So for example, if I select D2 as a facet, then my result list is updated and I only see 10 documents with the attribute value D2 for the attribute product. And as you also see, the facets were updated, and I only see the possible values for the other attributes. So for example, if I'm looking for version 4.5, I can select the 4.5 for the document version facet, and then I have only 4 results for documents in the result list. So this is the way. This is a very quick and nice way to find documents through a full text search. And of course, if I do not want to search for version 4.5, I can deselect this facet and, for example, facet version 4.2, and then the result list is also updated. And you can also see that the facets here directly at the top of the result list. So this is a new feature, a new search feature of version 4.5, and in my point of view it's very powerful, and the user like this feature very much because it helps them to easily find content. Another improvement for the topic search is an improvement for query form searches. So in this search workspace, or in the search view, I've configured a very easy query form search, which is displayed here. So I have only one control on this query form search. So a query form search is a specific search which you can configure, and the query form search always displays controls where you can enter the search criteria. So here now I want to select Documentum. This is the product family, and then I click on Run Query, and then the query form search is executed. This is not new, but what is new? Now the query form search supports also explore queries with facets. So I've executed the query form search, and you can see the results and also my facets. So I've configured 2 facets for this query form search, product and product version. So now you are able to execute the query form search and displays facets, and the user has the possibility to decrease the search result by selecting facets. So for example, if I click on XCP, then the facets are updated and also the result list is updated, with the possible documents. And now I can also select version 2.2, and then I only see 3 documents. And now I can select this document, for example, and see the content here directly in the viewer. So this is also a very nice improvement in D2 when you use query form searches for specific search use cases, and when you want to offer additional features to decrease the search result for the user, then you can use it and display facets that the user can use, of course. Okay. So the next thing I want to show you is the topic workflow. So EMC introduced also new features for workflow support. And first of all, I want to start a workflow. So this is a Documentum Foundation Services folder with 3 PDFs. So one improvement in version 4.5 is that the workflow now supports multiple main documents. So in previous versions, D2 supports only one document, and now D2 supports multiple documents for workflows. What is specific for main document? The main documents of a workflow are the documents where actions are executed on during the workflow. So for example, if you want to execute the life cycle action on documents during the workflow, then it must be a main document. And yeah, now EMC or D2 supports multiple documents for workflow. That means you can add one or more documents to the workflow, and actions which are configured in the workflow are automatically executed on all of these documents. So let's select 2 documents and start our workflow. I've prepared a small workflow with 2 approver activities. So I select myself, and after that my colleague David should approve the workflow. And when we go to the tab attachments, then we see workflow document and attachments, and workflow attachment are the main documents which I've mentioned, and here you see the 2 selected documents. Of course, you can add also attachments, but attachments are not used when you execute specific features in a workflow. So let's start this workflow. Okay, and here we see that the workflow start was successful. So now I will switch to the workflow view, and here we see the workflow. So when I select this workflow task, you can see here in the task attachments widget my two documents, and as you can see, those 2 documents are bold. So all bold documents in this widget are main documents, workflow documents, and if this workflow had an attachment, then the attachment is also displayed in this widget, but not bold, so with normal font. Okay, so what else introduced EMC in D2 4.5? a very nice feature is the preview widget of a workflow. So when I open the preview widget, then you can see the workflow which are currently running. So this is the workflow definition which I have configured with the workflow manager. And you see the legend here on the top left corner of this widget. And well, the orange activity is our current task. So the user can see that the current workflow state is approver 1, and the next workflow activity is approver 2. So with this widget, the user has the possibility to see the current status of this workflow and knows which activities will follow and which activities are already done. So this is only a very simple workflow, but this widget also displays complex workflows, and for these complex workflows it makes also more sense to display it to the user, that the user knows where the workflow currently is. Another feature which is new in version 4.5 are delegations. So a typical use case for a delegation is, of course, if an employee is on vacation, and during the vacation all the upcoming workflow tasks should be delegated to someone else. So in version 4.5, EMC introduced the delegations feature with the delegations widget, and the user can create delegations that the upcoming workflow task will be directly delegated to someone else. So the user can click on new delegation, for example, and then a new dialog is opened. And here the user can, of course, select the period, the begin and also the end. So for example, I'm on vacation from the 13th of September until the 30th of September. Then I can enter this period, and I can also select the specific workflow. So for example, review and approval. So with this feature, it is possible that the user can select different people for different workflow during his vacation, and also delegate though the task for review and approval workflows are for Catherine. Right. So and I can of course save it, and then I see my delegation and the delegations widget. Of course, I can delete a delegation, and another feature which is implemented is the undo feature. That means you can undo the delegation, so workflow tasks which are already delegated to someone else can be rebound back to the to this user. And an additional feature of delegations is that you can configure specific user or groups which are allowed to configure a delegation for someone else. So if you have power users or administrators which should create delegations for someone else because the employee hasn't done it, then this is also possible, and the advantage is that you can configure who's able to create the delegation for someone else. Okay, so another feature of, or another improvement of D2 are the intelligent URLs. So intelligent URLs were introduced in previous D2 versions, and now EMC has extended this feature. So I've prepared a DL link, for example, here, and this DL link points to the document version 1.1.0, and the current version of this document is 2.0. So, and when I enter this link to D2, of course I see the login because it's a new window. I'll log in. And D2 will display a dialog which asks you if you want to open the version which is specified in the link or the current version. So this is an improvement in version 4.5 that D2 asks you if you want to open the specific version or the current version. And this is also possible for other DL links which opens, for example, documents with annotations or the native content. So D2 separates between different kinds of documents. Okay, let's go back to my D2 client. So the last feature I want to present you in this webinar is or are the user settings. So when you go to the user menu and open the user settings, then you can specify settings for this user. So for example, the view path or the checkout path, if the user wants to edit a document, and also configurations for the date format, or for example for the user interface itself. So for example, you can configure if the menu position is on the top or on the left side. And on the third tab we see notifications. So it's also possible to configure the notifications for subscriptions if you have configured subscription in your application. So this dialog is not new. This is not the improvement. The improvement is that an administrator can configure these user settings for specific users and groups. So this is the improvement in version 4.5. In previous versions, it was an administrator was able to set these settings through DQL and small customizations, and now the administrator is able to configure all these settings through a D2 configuration. So when I switch to the D2 config client and open my application, then I go to the D2 user settings configuration, this one here. Here you see the configuration which are possible for the user settings. So I already explained you can configure the temporary path if you view documents or alter the checkout part, and also the date formats for displaying an input, and additional settings for the user interface, how the menu will be displayed, and also for notification. And the advantage is, of course, that this can be done specific for document sets or contexts. That means that you can configure this for specific for different groups. In my example here, I've configured the temp view location, but it's also possible, of course, to use a placeholder for the user, to configure a directory user directory, for example, C users, and then the username, and then a subfolder inside of the user folder. Okay, that's so far what I want to present you today of the D2 features. These are the most important D2 features. Of course, there are some other D2 features, some smaller improvements for security and also for usability, but these are the most important D2 features of version 4.5 in our point of view. So thank you very much for your attention.